So the presenters for today will be me. I'm one of the leadership team here at Transcera. I was brought in because of my business intelligence, big data, and analytics background. And joining me later in the presentation will be Mike Greiner, who is one of our senior product specialists with many, many years of working in the contact center world with software and SaaS solutions, and has a very stellar list of companies that he has worked for in the past. And he will be giving you the demo at the end of the presentation. And at the end, both of us will be available for question and answer via the chat window. Let's make this as interactive as possible, so feel free, while you are all on mute, you're still able to ask questions in the question area or send us a chat in the chat window. So feel free to do either one during the presentation, and we will try to address the questions as they come in. So with that, let me walk you through what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to focus on is how Transcera addresses the issue of customer engagements through an analytics-driven paradigm. I first want to talk about the challenges that the industry faces right now in terms of being able to leverage the data we have in the contact center for the purpose of improving our customer interactions. Then I'll talk about Transcera's approach to bringing that data together, analyzing it, and using it to improve the business outcomes in your contact center. Then I'll walk briefly through a customer case study that we have, a company called Simplexity, which is one of the largest, the largest reseller of mobile plans. And then finally, we will go through a demo at the end to give you a feel for some of the interactive capabilities of our analytics solution. So let's talk about the data challenge a little bit. Aberdeen Group did quite a bit of research last year on this topic, and the white papers that came from those studies are available on our website. But the things that they found that we found interesting is that the number one challenge impacting customer care programs is the lack of data integration, because 60% of all contact centers use at least 7 different channels to engage their clients. And of those folks, 93% of them are not fully satisfied with their ability to use this data in their customer engagement. So clearly there's some room for improvement as an industry here in terms of what we can do to improve our customer engagements. And the issue, I mean, it's not really anyone's fault. It's a function of the way the industry has grown up. New technologies have come up. We've bought additional systems. It's become cost-effective to go with outsourcers. We've got a mobile workforce working at home. We've distributed the outsourcers to reduce costs, and so now we've been in a situation where we have multiple contact centers, each with their own systems. Some of them are outsourced and run by other companies. And then we have this issue of all of the different systems we're using to interact with these people. And the data, I'll dive into that topic a little bit more. Then the data is at different levels in these systems, so they're not a one-to-one match between what might be in one system and the records that might be in another. And the actual structure of the data is variable. Some are in relational data structures, websites are generating click streams, event logs, social media is coming with text. We've got voice. So bringing it all together in a coherent fashion does have inherent challenges. And so what we've got is all of these different systems, each with their own data silo. You've got an email system by which you're corresponding with your customers. You've got web chat capabilities on your website, and those are being logged. You've got an interactive voice response system that people are interacting with and going through, and it's keeping track of what a customer is doing and what buttons they push. You've got, obviously, the ACD and the phone systems tracking logs and transfers and how long someone's on a call. And then finally, you have your customer relationship manager that you're using to send emails and receive emails from customers, but also to log any transactions. So these all have their own data silos, and they're all managed differently. And so we're getting reports from each one of these individually, but not getting a coherent view into all of them. And as I mentioned earlier, the thing that complicates that even more is this distributed workforce, because may have some of our systems in-house. Some may be in remote contact centers and other locations. We might be using outsourcers who have their own systems. And then, of course, some of our workers are using it at home and logging in remotely. So again, it's hard to bring this data all together. And then the data is in silos. As I mentioned, each call center and location, if they're going with an on-premise model, have their own servers and hardware and equipment and software installed. So you've got not only multiple locations, but multiple systems in each location. And so it becomes very difficult to optimize any of the operations here from the multiple contact center for business outcomes, because when you've got the data siloed like this, it's hard to tell who delivers the best customer satisfaction scores, because that's all logged in different places, and which teams and agents perform best, because the activity of the agents' records are in one system, but their actual end result in terms of whether they converted that customer and how much revenue they did or did not generate might be somewhere else. And you've got data information in terms of the demographics of the customer, how long they've been a customer, what other products they may have, whether they're looking to disconnect service or coming up for renewal or needing some customer support. And all of that information is in yet another system. So you don't know, according to the customers, where you should send them and who are the best agents to resolve which problems for a particular type of customer. So it's hard to optimize. And then the data in these systems is at different levels. Many of the systems, such as say an IVR, collect individual events every time you push a button in a phone, when you're in an interactive voice response system, or you actually say a word. That is an event in the system. Same thing when you send an email or a chat response, or a routing decision in ACD. These are individual events. A combination of these events add up to becoming a transaction, such as a particular session with a chat and with an agent doing chat, or in a particular session with an IVR. And then a combination of those transactions becomes an interaction, right? So you've had an IVR session, which then led you to an agent. You had a discussion with an agent. That gets entered into the CRM system. And from me, the customer, that's all one interaction. But again, I've just mentioned 3 different systems in which that data is being tapped and logged in terms of what that interaction looks like to me. And from my perspective, it was just one interaction. And then finally, I might have multiple interactions as a customer to make up my individual engagements, because I might have to do multiple things in order to make a purchase. For example, over the course of the past few weeks, I've decided to buy an internet radio. First, I spent quite a bit of time on the website looking at the various options at Crutchfield. Then, after that, I sent an email and started asking questions of a particular agent. We responded a few times. Then I went away for a week and thought about it and did a little more research. And then I re-engaged with that agent via email and started to go through the process of addressing my final questions. And then again, I went away for a couple of days, and then I went online and made the purchase. So in my mind, that was all one engagement of me buying my internet radio. But I bet in the systems they have, every email interaction was separate, and my time on their website was separate, and my actual transaction and order in their e-commerce system was separate, and the 3 things are not connected. And then all of that adds up to my journey. I might have multiple engagements in the course of my lifetime as a customer with an organization. And so the data is at different levels, and it's important to know what levels they are and how to bring them together for a coherent perspective of the customer engagement and how we're addressing the needs of our customers. And that's what Transcera is here to address. Our solution takes the data you already have, your agent data, your customer data, all your call data, your transaction data, in whatever system it may reside. And we help you bring that together and analyze it, and so you can manage your business from a business outcome focus, not just an operational efficiency one. So you can understand what interactions, what engagements cause to increase your revenues, cross-sales or upsells, or increase your average order size or conversion rates, or result in the best customer satisfaction scores. And the intention of Transcera, the thing we're trying to do as a business, is help your contact center become a strategic business asset and no longer just a cost center. And therefore move into the new era of contact centers, which is a customer engagement center. So Transcera goes through a 4-step process to accomplish this. The first thing we do is we take all your data and we turn it into information. We have a customer engagement repository up in the cloud, and we pull the data from all your different contact center systems, and using big data and NoSQL techniques, we bring them together and connect the data from the various systems so that you have a coherent perspective of what your customer experience is and an end-to-end view of your customers. And I'll go into more of this later. The second step is once we have the data in this repository in the cloud, we have an application that allows you to analyze it for insight through a very interactive drag and drop paradigm. You can query, segment, and profile the data in there to look for trends and correlations. And that's the demo you're going to see later in the webinar from Mike. The third step is to validate any insights we get in there for intelligence. We at Transcera have a data science team that helps look at your analysis using the Analyzer product and starts to do some work to validate any insights or hypotheses you may have come up with. And we do that using statistical models and analytic techniques. So your team doesn't have to be a data science expert. We'll take that on for you and guide you through that process. And then the fourth step is improvement. So once we validate that there is an opportunity for improvement, and if we change the way your agents and your contact center systems behave, then we can automate that improvement and actually bring those business outcome improvements to your system. And I'll go through in each one of these in more depth. So how do we turn all of that disparate data into information? Well, the key thing is that we are not going to put any burden on your IT organization. If they can generate comma-separated files for us, we're able to take the data from those various systems. We go into the files and we clean and validate it and augment it as we need to so that we're able to bring it into the customer engagement repository. We've been doing this for many years, and we've got experts and data engineers who know how to do this in their sleep. And in this repository, we have a contact center universal data dictionary, which is already aware of the various fields that are going to be in an ACD or a CRM or an IVR. And because most of those systems keep the same kind of data, and even if it's a custom implementation or a very custom system that you built in-house for order entry or CRM, our model is extensible using these NoSQL and big data techniques. So it's very easy to adapt to whatever file structures and data you're collecting in your various systems. And we've built a technology that makes it very easy for us to take those files and then ingest them into our data repository, something we call TIDE, the Transcera Integration for Data Elements. And we put all that information in a big data NoSQL data store. So it's very easy to analyze and cross-reference across systems. Now, how do we do that? Well, we have this capability called multi-source linking. We have some heuristics in our system that know what fields in different systems might relate to other fields in other systems and represent the same customer. And then in those same records, what fields can we compare to see whether the customer is trying to accomplish the same thing of the same intent, such as I was doing from a purchase standpoint with Crutchfield. And we're able, using these heuristics, to bring this data together like a series of Legos, find the relationships between them, and then create a consistent overall view of every full interaction you have with the customer. So we're then able to link those interactions together so we get an understanding of your engagements. So you've got all your agent data, everything the agent did in here, and you've got all your customer data, all your customer interaction data. So now that's in the repository. Then we put it together for you. Then we enable you with our product called the Customer Engagement Analyzer to go in and look at that data from all of the different systems. And if you look at the screenshot here on the left-hand side, this one is telling us everything's from the ACD, but if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see CRMs in there and other systems. And you'll see that in the demo today. And using a drag and drop paradigm, I'm able to pull the different fields from the different systems and segment that data into groups. So I might look at, okay, give me all of the data from this particular lead source or campaign. Let me look at customers of this particular kind of demographic. Let me look at how all the data relating to this agent or team or a particular vendor. Once I have that data in the central window in the analyzer, I can profile it and start to look at measures, numeric values. What's the conversion rate? I can do computed values where I might take a field from one system and multiply it by another, or divide it by another, or add data from multiple systems and divide it to get averages, and use that to start to get some statistical understanding of what's going on in my contact center from an interaction and engagement standpoint. And then finally, we allow you to then visualize that data in a variety of different ways. So how might you use this analysis process? Well, as I mentioned, you will probably first try to group things by customer demographics or different agents or teams, maybe the contact channel customers used or the different marketing campaigns. And then you'll start to do the measures and the metrics to see maybe percentage of revenues and upsells by the different groupings, the customer experience, was the satisfaction good, how long did the process take, how many times were people on an average transferred or on hold, and then finally, if you care about customer retention and people canceling their service, what kind of percentages are we getting in terms of retention? So you can start to see how the operational metrics that might reside in your IVR and ACD map to the business data that's in your CRM system or order entry system or customer satisfaction survey systems. And as I mentioned earlier, when you get that data, you can see it in a variety of different visual formats. Once you've done that and you're starting to see some trends and correlations and thinking, this agent team might be better, this particular customer demographic might be more profitable for us, then, so you start to get some hunches. Then you share that with our data science team here at Transcera. And then what we do is we put together some predictive models using the R analytics language and some machine learning techniques to see if we can validate those hunches or hypotheses of yours. For example, we might start to look at months and months worth of data instead of, and start to cluster based upon performance and look if, this particular agent team or this type of customer consistently performs better or worse than others over a long period of time, so that we can start to predict it. We start to do some stability and variance modeling to understand, okay, how long does it have to be, how much data do we have to look at to get reliable predictions? And then, of course, we do some what-if analysis and simulations to kind of say, okay, if we did change the model, if we did change the way you were routing systems or prioritizing customers or increasing particular kind of marketing campaigns over others, what would be the business outcome of that process? And what we have here is a little graphic, and you'll see something a little bit more interesting later in the live demo. But I went too fast. Doesn't look like it's going to open for me today, so I'm sorry about that. You will see that live. But what that was going to show is a demonstration of the variance of how different agents perform on a real-time basis. So you can see that they're below average for a while, but above average, and how that starts to stabilize over time. But you'll see that later. And then finally, automate for improvement. Once we start to say, okay, if we drive your systems to behave in this particular way and offer these kind of scripts to your customer, your agents, and connect this kind of customer with this particular kind of agent, we can automate that for improvement. so that we can dynamically drive the routing of your contact center systems in terms of email, chat, and phone. So for example, based upon real-time data coming in today, in terms of the customer calls up and you do a quick demographic, the system does a quick demographic profile of them, the system looks at months and months worth of data about that kind of customer, and based upon that makes a decision proactively. I'm going to match this customer with a particular kind of agent who's the best one to resolve this particular issue or sell this particular customer. Or I'm going to match this particular customer with this particular kind of offer or script or service resolution. And we can implement these automation changes in 3 different ways. We can drive the behavior of existing systems, so we don't have to change what you already have in place, whether it's cloud-based or on-premise or in multiple sites. We can drive the behavior of those systems through data interfaces like CTI. Or we can overlay a cloud-based routing system on top of those and drive the behavior of your existing systems, but do it centrally from the cloud so you get global management and control. Or a few subset of our customers also choose to replace their existing systems with a cloud-based service that we offer. And then as we go through this process, we do a continual return on investment. When we do the intelligence building with the predictive modeling, we estimate return on investments, and we continue to measure that consistently over time and do A/B testing to make sure that you're getting the revenue gains or customer satisfaction gains that we predicted in the intelligence process. From a technology standpoint, there's 2 ways that we can do this particular kind of improvement. We can use a business rules engine so that if you know that forever and ever this is a particular way you want to handle the calls based upon this analytics and you want to embed that in the systems, we have a business rules engine where you go in and define how you behave, how the systems behave. Or we have a predictive analytics engine that makes the decision for you dynamically based upon performance data historically and the real-time data it has access to at that particular point in time, and then feeds that to your contact center systems. Some examples of what we've done for customers is we've done the routing based upon performance, match the customers with the best available agent that will drive the best outcomes for you. Demographic routing, saying, oh, this kind of customer actually gets along better with this kind of agent, so let's connect them. And we use that that's based on statistics. We do customer status routing. Oh, here's a high-profile customer. They have many services. They have a high long-time value. Let's make sure we give them route them in a priority basis, reduce their wait times, and give them a really intelligent agent. Or value-based routing based upon who that customer is at this particular point in time. Or service level routing. If you've got particular commitments to minimize abandons or wait times or other service levels, you can configure the systems, the predictive engines, or the business rules engine to drive that kind of behavior. So in summary, what we've got here is we pull the data from your various contact center systems. We put it in this customer engagement repository in the cloud, where we take all of the customer interaction records and the agent interaction records, and we connect them. And so that you can go in and do some analysis and segment slicing and dicing of that data for insights. That our data science team works with you to build predictive models and develop matching recommendations and implement those in either a predictive engine or a business rules engine so that we can then drive the behavior in an automated fashion of your contact center systems for your business improvements. Okay, so before we go to the demo, I want to briefly walk you through a customer that we've done this for, Simplexity. They are the largest reseller of wireless devices and service plans. And if you buy a cell phone from any number of very large, well-known chain stores that provide electronics or housewares, you are most likely, when you buy that, or office supplies, when you buy that particular phone, you are most likely buying it the agent you're dealing with is doing it through this company, Simplexity. And then you can also call Simplexity directly and buy over the phone or through their website. Their goals were to increase revenues and their conversion rates. So they had 500 agents in 3 different sites. Their desire to have one call resolution was way off. They say it was actually 5 call resolution before we got engaged. Their agent utilization and productivity was not managed, so they really didn't know which agents were best and whether they had the right occupancy for the different agents. Their conversion rates were exceptionally low, and the agents were costing them $10 per call. And for a large volume, low margin business, that was a challenge. As a result of what we did for them with this process of putting the, I'll walk through the process in a minute, they were able to change the way they routed. So they were routing their calls to the longest available agent. We changed it to the best available agent. As a result of that, they got an ROI within months. We improved productivity across the contact center by 25% and increased their sales by 5%, which is significant given the volume of their business. How did we do that? Well, we just took data from 2 of their systems. We took the call processing data from their ACD and their data from their order entry application, which was a custom in-house built application, and brought that data together into unified customer interactions and agent activity records and loaded them into our repository. Then we worked with them to use Analyzer to segment that data by different lead sources, by the different agents, the team, the time of day of calls, the day of the week of calls, the customer location, looking at what area code or zip code people were calling from. And then they profiled those different segments by conversion rates, average handle times, revenues, upsells, and cross-sells. And then they filled in, as a result of that, we all had a hunch that maybe some agents were significantly better than others, and there might be different clusters of agents. And were they using the best agents to the best to their ability? So we built a model to look at that and see what would happen if they changed the routing of the system so that they tried to optimize the occupancy of the agents with the best performance instead of the next available or longest available agent. And based upon that, we found that we recommended that they change that routing and that they could get some significant gains. So we worked with them to automate the improvements in their systems, and that's what resulted in the productivity improvements and the 5% increase in revenues. Now, this is an example of one of the things we did in the animated diagram that didn't work earlier in the webinar. This shows you over time for a particular agent that, for the first 200 calls, you can see that the agent's performance is kind of all noise, no real signal. It's up and down. And then when it goes from 200 to 600, it starts to level out, but it's not completely reliable. There is some variance. But once you get above the 600 call, there's definitely a very consistent performance for that person in terms of their ability to convert customers. So we did that for all of their agents and resulted in 10 different clusters of performance. And so before we engaged, they were using their agents pretty much consistently. You'll notice everybody in the 10 different clusters of performance were getting about 80% occupancy, with the exception of the lowest performing agents, which were getting a 99, almost 100% occupancy. And by changing the routing recommendations for them so that the best available agent was being used, we were able to increase the occupancy of the top 4 or top 5 clusters significantly above 80. And notice we even got 97% occupancy for that very best tier. And as a result of that, if you look far to the right, the incremental conversions that they got were significant, resulting in a particular month over 193 additional sales. So in summary, they got a 300% return on their investment by matching their customers to the best available agent. Therefore, they've got their high-performing agents working at the very possible top level. And we actually found that in addition to that, that there were certain agents, certain customers from particular area codes that actually had a higher propensity to close. And so we are now starting to prioritize those customers for them. And with that, I'd like to turn over to Mike Greiner, who will do the demo. He'll walk through building an insight using our Customer Engagement Analyzer. He will use the interactive capabilities to do some segmenting and profiling for us, show us some visualizations, and then show us that once you've come up with the right visualizations, your ability to load that into a dashboard. So I will now change the presenter over to Mike Greiner. Mike, I think we may be having trouble hearing you. I think you're muted, Mike.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so what I'd like to do right now is walk through and build a visualization for you and show you how you use the tool. And as Rich discussed, we actually ingest the data from multiple systems, whichever systems are most relevant in your business. In the case of our demo, we're actually working with a couple different systems, and they're over here on the left. It's actually ACD, and you see all of the various fields, and later we'll take a look at measures. But we see exactly where those are from. So we see that a lot of these are from the ACD. As we scroll down here, we'll see that we also have some that are from our CRM application as well. So when we're building a visualization, the first thing we want to do is go in and determine when we want to run this data for. When do we want to see this visualization for? And I can go in and I can put in a specific date and time, or I can go in and put a relative date and time. When I use a relative date and time, I can just pull that from a drop-down. I can say I'd like to see it for yesterday, today, this week, last week, this month, last month, this year. So I'm going to go in and actually select that I'd like to see this for last month. And you'll notice with this that there's a little padlock here. So what that gives me the capability to do is if I leave that padlock in the locked position, then this is exactly how this report will always run. But if I open that padlock, that means at runtime I can actually change that parameter. I can change that so I don't have to rebuild the report. I can just leave the padlock open and I can change the one parameter of when I want to see that, for example, what period I want to run that for. The next thing that we would do is go ahead and put in filters. And when I say filters, for example, I may have a lot of DNSs that I work with. And I only want to see this report for certain DNSs. Maybe it's the 80-20 rule that 20% of my DNSs are producing 80% of my business. I really only want to see those specific DNSs for this report. I could actually drag DNS over from the measures field here, and from the fields here, over as a filter, and I can then say what specific DNSs I want to either include or exclude. So I can filter my report down to the specific items that I want to view and not necessarily look at everything. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in and start building the actual visualization, pulling in the components that I want. So the first thing I want to do is, and we're going to build a very simple a very simple visualization here, which is going to be made up of call count. So I'm just going to pull that over from the measures section, drop that right onto the palette. And when I drop it onto the palette, I have a number of different call count metrics that I can look at. This is a very simple report, so I'm just going to go with the sum of the call count. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. The next thing I want to look at is how many calls I actually handled. Not just how many came in, but how many were handled by my agents. And again, same thing, I have multiple different items I can select here for handled, but I really just want to go in and work with the sum of the handled. So now I have the handled. And now from my CRM, I actually want to pull in my revenue. So my CRM gives me an estimated revenue number, and I'm going to pull that over and drop that onto the palette. And again, I really just want the sum of the estimated revenue. What I'm trying to get to is actually, I'd like to find out what my revenue per call is. And that is not something that I have in the measures. That's something I'm going to have to calculate here. So when I need to calculate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just right-click my mouse, and that pulls up this short menu. And I just want a new column here. So I'm going to say I'd like a new column, and I'd like that column to be the sum of estimated revenue divided by the sum of the handled, because I really only want to count the calls that were handled by my agents and not those that didn't get to them. And I go ahead and I can also rename this here, and I'm going to rename this right now revenue per call. Okay, and I'm going to save that. And now I have to go in and format my column here. So again, I just right-click. I say number format. This is currency. So I'm going to drop down to currency. I'd like to see it in this format. And now I actually have my revenue per call. So again, we tried to stay with a very simple set of data here to work with, just to show you how easy it is to actually pull all of these elements together and create new information or new fields from the information that you have. Now, once I've created this, then I just go up and I save it. Now, if I wanted to save this, normally I'm going to go up here and give it a specific name, but I create pretty much this report for every demo I do, so I'm not going to give it a unique name here. So I'm just going to save it by the default name. Once I've saved that, then I have the ability, and when I save it, and again, I'm just going to save this into the general folder here, but I can actually save it into my own specific folder. So if I want reports that are unique to me, I can actually create my own folder. I can even create a folder now, and I can have that be my own folder for my own reports, which is probably generally what I'm going to do. But again, I'm just going to say OK here that it goes into the general folder. And at this point, I have the capability to preview that data. I have the ability to delete the visualization. I can export that data. I can export that as a CSV file. And finally, I have the ability to schedule this visualization to run at specific times. And what it's going to do at that point is I have the capability to run it and actually email that to myself and to whoever else I want to see that. And I can actually determine whether I'm going to send this out as an actual link back to this report on the system or just as a CSV file. Depending on who I'm sending it to, they may or may not have access to the system. So I may just want to send it as a CSV file. But we've taken a look at building this, and we've built this as a nice tabular report. But you'll notice down at the bottom I have the capability to see how I would chart that. And literally all I have to do is click on the chart button, and it has automatically developed that into a bar chart. I can go in and just by right-clicking, I can change that chart. I can change it to a column chart, a line chart, a pie chart, or a motion chart. So I can go in and click line chart, and it's going to give me that data as a line chart. I can go in and I can change that to an area chart. So I can go in and change these visualizations in these charts very easily. I have the capability at this point also to have, for example, stacked charts. So I can have, for example, a stacked bar chart. And I can also have the capability here to go in and to show or hide the legend that I used to build this. So that's how you go in and actually build a visualization. It's very simple. And again, you may be doing more complex visualizations. It may require, as we saw, we had a lot of choices available to us in terms of how I use those metrics and what metric I pulled in specifically. So I can do some much more complex calculations than what we saw here. But again, I'm just trying to give you a high-level overview and show you a simple report and how we put that together. Once you put that together, you can actually go in and you can view your existing, both dashboards as well as your existing visualizations. And so I can go in and work with the list of visualizations and whether they're tables or charts, and it tells me whether they're tables or charts. I can go in and work with those tables and charts. And the great thing is I can actually select them. If I find one that's very close to what I'm trying to create, I can actually go in, use that report as a springboard, start modifying that, and when I go to save it, I just save it under a new name, save it into my own personal folder, and that way as I'm trying to, make this more productive for everyone, I don't have to reinvent the wheel each and every time I want to go out and create something. If I see someone that has a visualization that's very close to what I'm trying to create, just go out and borrow theirs, use it as a springboard, and create my own. Ultimately, what you get to is you actually can collect all of these visualizations, whether they're tabular or whether they are charts, and you can actually display them onto your own personal dashboard. And I have a dashboard that I pulled up earlier, and it actually has a number of these visualizations. This is a motion chart that it starts with, and I have the capability to put this chart actually into motion and play. This is over a period of 30 days, and I can pause that whenever I want and look at the specific items on here and understand this better. I can also go out and change the nature of these. I can go out and change this. This is currently doing conversion count, but I could actually change this to call count or conversion ratio based on what I'm looking for and based on how I built that visualization initially. I also have the capability to set this up as a heat chart, which is what we see over here. So I can see, in this case, the heat is on the conversion ratio that my agent had, but I could actually set this up to do other things, make other things the heat for that particular visualization. This is just another motion chart. It's a little bit different. And again, with the motion charts, we're showing bubble charts right now. I also have the capability to show these as line charts as well as bar charts. So I can go in and change all of those, throughout. And again, I have the capability to go in and look at tabular data as well as other types of reports. So that's really what I wanted to show you today. I just wanted to give you a high-level overview. We've really just sort of skimmed the surface. So, again, we're more than happy to take time out and work with you individually and kind of walk you through a more detailed demo, more specific to your needs. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Rich.
Thank you, Mike. Great demo. Thank you. So again, folks, that was our Customer Engagement Analyzer, which is the product that you use under our guidance to understand the data in your customer engagement repository and to start to build your hunches as to, okay, where is my business coming from and where's the performance coming from? And then from those hunches, we start to build the statistical models and predictive models to help you figure out how to optimize your contact center systems and agents to increase that performance. So now we will take any questions and answers. Mike and I are both here for you. We've got several that have come in through the chat question answer session. So let me pull a couple that are interesting or that have occurred more than once here. Okay, there's a couple questions about BI and data warehouses, so let me take this one. We have invested heavily in our data warehouse and BI tool for reporting. Will this replace that? And the answer is no. We will augment that. You're probably using that. I spent years in the BI business, and you are most likely using that product and that data warehouse to do operational reporting, to look at how did we do last week, how did we do last month, last quarter. And those products are very good at that. They aggregate the data so that it performs well. You're looking at summaries, and you're able to get the statistics on a time frame basis. And most likely you'll want to continue those. Our product is to really do more deep analytics. We don't aggregate or summarize any information. We bring in all the detailed events and logs and transactions and interactions from your various systems, all the detailed data in all its glory, and we put it together in our repository. But it's designed in a way for you to, as Mike showed in the demo, to start mapping the individual interactions and transactions and events to business performance. So this is built to understand where your business is coming from, which is very different from, where is your operational efficiency coming from, or just how many calls did we handle last week. It's mapping those calls to actual outcomes. So we would augment that. Plus, the one thing that our solution does, as I mentioned, that's quite different from a BI is once we come up with those understandings of where the business improvement is coming from, we are able to automate through our predictive analytics engine or our business rules engine to automate the behavior of your contact center systems so that they are optimized to result in more positive business outcomes. So we help you get results from the results and from the data, not just to see the data. Okay. Here another one is, this sounds great, but we would need to get our IT organization involved, and they are very backlogged as it is. I can handle this, or Mike, do you want to try to handle like what we do to alleviate the need to rely on IT?
Sure. Again, we have a team that works with you, and all we really require is to get that data as a CSV file. So we're actually putting in the effort and doing all the heavy lifting to accomplish this. We have a team of people who just work with our analyzer tool, and again, we make it very simple and really kind of try to keep your IT team out of the process and not require anything more than a simple CSV file from them. And that hasn't been a problem to date, and it's usually not much of a hurdle to request just some large CSV files from them. And that's again, we're not looking for them to do the slicing and dicing and do all the analytics behind that. We just need the files.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Very good. Here's one question. This kind of project is not currently budgeted. What is the pricing model? Well, it really depends on what you're trying to do. Some of our customers just engage with us to have us build the customer engagement repository, and then for them to use the analyzer to start to understand where their business is coming from. And that is a subscription basis that you pay on for an annual commitment, and that typically runs for a typical organization, say around $30,000 a year, but would change upon the number of systems, the number of data sources, and the amount of data that we're looking at. But it's not terribly expensive in terms of the cost in the course of the year. It's a couple thousand a month with some minimal setup fees. Some customers use us to take that data and just have our data science team build the predictive models to make some recommendations and to say this is how you improve your business. And then the customer goes and implements those changes themselves in their contact center systems. And so that's incrementally higher, but not terribly expensive. The more expensive, just the analyzer. But again, it's a either subscription fee or it's a engagement fee if it's just the data science team. And then finally, if we start to automate automate the results, and you're using our predictive analytics engine, then again, that's a subscription model, but it can get up to significantly more money there based upon what you're trying to do. The key is that we don't really get you engaged until we already understand the ROI. One of the things we do when we start to engage with the customer is we build a proof of concept first, so that we can start to understand and build the models that say, okay, if we change things this way, this is the incremental business improvement that you will get. So then let's work with you to figure out what the financial gain from that or financial savings is from that, so that you can understand how much it's going to benefit your organization. And based upon that, so far, customers have found that the ROI is almost immediately or in the first couple of months, so that even if it's not a budgeted project, it is worth pursuing because of the potential upside in terms of adding to the top line revenue of the company in the course of the first year. Okay, with that, I think we will call the webinar to a close. Thank you very much for your attention. This will be archived and recorded for you if you'd like to revisit it or share it with a friend. And we are available here to answer any questions. You can email us at analytics@transcerainc.com. If you have any additional questions, we'd be happy to help you. And thank you again for your attendance today.